Greetings, traveler. You know what it's like when someone says, "Oh, you play D&D? Yeah, I would like to play D&D too." And you ask, "Well, do you know any of the rules?" And they say, "No, but I would still like to play." And then you get that feeling where you want to introduce them to the world, you want to show them this really cool game, but you think, "Oh, but it's going to take hours to explain the rules and have them read the books and make a character, and that's all too much trouble." And I thought so too. But then I thought, well, what if you could distill D&D down to its most core elements and make it so that even a player who has never played D&D before and hasn't even seen the rulebook could still have lots of fun with it and even enjoy it so much that they would want to start playing from that session onwards. So today, I want to talk about exactly that. How I ran a session recently with people who were brand new to D&D, and we started playing with essentially zero prep, zero looking into rules and reading books and all that, and we could jump right into the action. If you don't know who I am, my name is Xanthos. I've been working in the games industry for about 15 years now, and I've been playing D&D for 25 years or so. And this situation where a new player wants to play D&D is all too common, as we know. So recently, my friends said that my two friends who are experienced with D&D wanted to introduce a couple that had never played D&D before, and they asked me if we could have a session and we could get them started. So there, I had three things that I was skeptical about. First is how long it would take to make the characters. Second, how to set up the table and the space for all the props and so on to represent the space in the adventure. And third, how I could explain the rules to them fast enough so we basically didn't have to spend more than 30 seconds about explaining the entirety of the D&D rules. So I put the system in place. I quickly went over everything because we only had 2 hours to play the session anyway. And long story short, the explanation was so simple that the new players understood the crust of D&D right away. They could start understanding how they could use the system to pull off all these crazy acrobatic moves and do this Indiana Jones type of adventure. And by the end of the night, they were having so much fun, they wanted to extend the session to not just extra hours, but extra sessions into the future. So it seems that they enjoyed it, and this is what I want to share today, and let's jump right into it. The first part is the characters. If we start talking about characters and all the options and all the customization and the looks and the gear packs and all that, it can take forever. Now, it's fun when it takes forever because you can customize your character to be as strong or as cool as you want, but that already assumes that you have this knowledge in your head. If you don't, all these customization options of, what weapon and what gear and all that, it doesn't mean anything to you because you don't have an understanding of the rules yet. So with that in mind, what I did, while still maintaining a little bit of customization and a little bit of individuality for each player character, is I said that that in the room that the adventure was starting in the game world, there were 6 people, 3 men and 3 women. And then I went to give each one of them just one defining feature, one thing that stands out for them. So I gave one guy staff inscribed with runes. To another guy, I gave a bow on his back. One of the girls had a belt of potions around her waist with various colors and weird bottles and all that. And you get the idea. Each one of these characters had some sort of a unique feature that made them set apart, made them look different than all the others. So when I did that, each of the players in the group chose the one that stroked their fancy, and we were off to the races after spending basically just 30 seconds selecting and making characters. The elegant part of this method was that this was just a starting point for the characters, and then each player could go in and tell us additional things about that character. Is the character blonde or dark-haired? Is the character muscular or not? What are their clothes like? Those are all details that the players could fill in with their imagination and communicate it to the group. Second part is the size and feeling of space in the adventure. So of course there was no grid on the table, there was no fancy props to show distance and so on. But I did notice, and I spoke about this in a previous video, that this ruler I happen to have is more or less the space of 30 feet of movement. So I said that, well, if I put this on the table and your character is here, if you can, if your target is anywhere this length close to you, you can reach them. So that's how far you can move on your turn, I said. And for the third part, the actual rules of the game and what sort of things you can do with your action, I said, well, D&D is a very complex game and there's all these crazy things you can do with it, but basically it all comes down to one die. I said that basically this one little die that's not focusing very well, the D20, is all you need. Every time you want to do something that's difficult, like punching an enemy or doing some sort of acrobatics or manipulating or sabotaging or doing something with complex machinery or anything like that, anything that looks adventurous, just roll one of these, and if the roll is high enough, you get to do what you intended to do. And the more difficult the thing you're about to do, then the higher the roll you need to get. But especially for this first session, I made sure that there was nothing extremely difficult in their environment that they had to do to move forward with the adventure. So with that, everything was set in place. The players had their characters that they could then start customizing and so on. They had an intuitive understanding of the space with just one ruler to show them whether they can reach something or not. And finally, with the basic D20 mechanic of Dungeons & Dragons, they had an intuitive understanding of the most fundamental rule in the entire system, the D20 rule. So from that, they could understand that anything they had seen in video games and in movies before, all these crazy acrobatics and fancy fighting scenes and climbing and doing a backflip in midair to land on an opponent's head and fight him and so on. All that stuff was possible. If it was a bit too crazy, then they might have to roll a die for it. But I was also trying to be a bit more lenient. In the beginning, I didn't try to make absolutely every action impossible for them to achieve. So prioritizing fun is, as we know, the rule 0 of D&D. And that seemed to work really, really well for them. They had a blast. They were really animated during the game. They were visibly happy when they achieved what they had in mind they wanted to do in the game. One player had a rope and hook, and he thought, well, wait a minute. If I use this rope and hook, can I throw it on an enemy and pull him off the airship that he's on right now and make him like fall into the sea, and so we don't have to fight him? I said, of course you can. Roll it. And with a fair enough roll, he did it, and you could see in that moment how he got empowered and he felt like he gets the system. He had never seen a single book of D&D before, but in that moment he got it. It's like, okay, if I try to do something difficult, that's how I do it, and I just need to do something that my character would generally know how to do to make sure that I'm not trying to do something that's too difficult for me. Anyway, that's it for the 3 steps I used to introduce brand new players into D&D. If this helps you introduce more players and your friends to a fun night, I will be super happy that this knowledge helps you. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have fun.